Or
You know what? You had me at badass, so whatever you put after that is fine with me.
This Marquee Dragon video is sponsored by Shattered Crystal, game codes, and items.
Hello, I'm Marcus Heikenberry from MarqueeDragon.com, and I'm at the Login Conference, and today I've got Sean Kane. Now, Sean is one badass lawyer, or is it attorney? Or,
You know what? You had me at badass, so whatever you put after that is fine with me.
So, what draws you to the video game industry? Why are you doing legal work in this area?
You know what? I came to it basically because of my background was intellectual property. So that was initially one of the impetus. But what really drew me in was the opportunity to be working in an area where it was so cutting edge that the law really hasn't been written yet in this area. And so it really gives you the opportunity to think about things in a new way, apply some existing laws to a space in a new way, but also to be able to create the law that's going to shape this industry in the years to come.
I really need some new laws put in.
I'll work with you on that, see what we can do.
You know, I've exited out of the RMT industry now, but I was really heavy into that, and it's just such a open ground. And I was always amazed about that. In fact, one of the things, we talked to the IRS and they didn't know how to classify us, so they wanted us to pay them to research it.
I love that one. That's a government for you.
Yeah, so tell me about one of your biggest challenges that you've run into doing your work in the video game industry.
You know, probably one of the biggest challenges is, it's funny, it's one of the interesting strengths that also ends up becoming a challenge as a lawyer. We're dealing with people that are so creative, and they're really thinking outside the box and outside the boundaries of things. But
so you don't even know how to package them.
Right.
The time.
I mean, so, exactly. But as an attorney, my job is basically to help them manage risk. Okay. It's not to say no. You know, I mean, I always say I try to live by a quote by J.P. Morgan, which was, I don't pay my lawyers to tell me what I can't do. I pay them to tell me how to do what I want to do.
Right.
But the challenge is basically dealing with people that are so creative and that so want to push the envelope, but to do it in a way where we're protecting them as much as possible. So it's sometimes basically being able to say to them, listen, you can't do exactly what you're saying. You can't get from point A to point B in the way that you're talking about. But you know what? We can get there if we go to point C first, and then we might be able to take that detour and get there. So it's really, the challenge is to get them to understand that there is a need to protect themselves. There is a need to manage that risk. You know, it isn't always necessary or advisable to just completely ignore it because, well, we think everybody else seems to be doing it too.
How do you feel about the philosophy of asking for forgiveness is much easier than asking for permission?
It's a valid philosophy. I mean, and it depends, but it really depends on what the circumstances are. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, there are certain times where, you know, I've advised my clients. I'm like, listen, you know what? You are better off here, basically, just later on saying mea culpa. You know, what do we do to make it everybody happy now? Because if we did it beforehand, they never would have allowed it. It just never would have happened. But there are some other circumstances where the risk factors in doing something like that can be so astronomically high that you really need to determine whether you're willing to take that level of risk.
Yeah, you don't want to end up being negligent.
No, I mean you don't want to end up going to prison. You know, that's and there are certain times where some of these actions can end up with people going to prison. I mean, lawyers have gone to prison because they advised their clients to take or not take certain actions.
What country was it was it Italy that sent 11 Google employees to prison because of a video that showed up on YouTube?
Oh, okay. I think it was Italy actually.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the thing. You got to be. That's another actually great point. Like, the law in every country is different.
Yeah.
You know, there is not one set of laws that a game company can say, oh, we comply with X set of laws, so we're fine. You know, it's really a matter of, it's a case-by-case basis. It's just jurisdiction by jurisdiction. Sometimes you can look at them and say, out of all the jurisdictions, this one seems to be the most draconian in some of their laws. So if you comply with these ones, you're probably complying with the main issues that you're going to face in any other jurisdictions. But still, there are going to be things that are not covered.
I run into that all the time with international stuff. Yeah. So, what's one of the big wins you've had?
Big wins I've had
that you can actually tell about.
Yeah, that's the problem. On some of them,
all this
you really can't.
confidentiality stuff. Okay, so I really kicked this guy's ass in court. It was glorious, but I can't tell you who it was.
Exactly. Well, actually, I mean, those sort of things. The court cases are ones you actually can talk about, which are great. I mean, that's because it's public.
Okay.
Who I represented in a particular case, it's listed on court documents, so that's not a concern. It's a lot of the kind of the business deals where you got something great for your client through negotiation that often you can't talk about because you have a duty to your client not to discuss the work you're doing for them unless they've authorized you to do so.
That's what makes it so hard to interview you.
But also, but also you have in some of these documents, they have confidentiality provisions within the document, so you really can't talk about the terms of them.
Yeah.
But I guess some of the big win was, I took a case to trial about a year ago where ultimately we won everything for the client. I mean, we literally won their attorney's fees. We got, whether they were going to be able to collect it in the long run, they still haven't collected it, and I highly doubt they ever will because the party they got them from is pretty much a deadbeat. But that being said, it was a system where it was great to see the system really working the way it's supposed to. The case didn't take very long. Within a year from the start, we were finished with a trial.
Okay.
And it was wonderful to basically see a judge really look at the issues, think about them in an intelligent way, not put up with a bunch of bullshit from lawyers basically bickering back and forth, and coming out with a decision that in the end me and my client felt was what it should have been.
Yeah.
So something like that's a great win. But other times, your great win is literally just helping your client get the next deal. I mean, I sometimes will put one client together with another client because I know they'll be able to work together. Unfortunately, I end up conflicting myself out of being able to represent either one of them generally in a transaction like that unless they both agree. But it makes more sense for me to see the industry progress and see my clients successful because they'll likely come back to me for the next deal.
What drives you?
Usually a cab in New York.
Yeah.
No, well, what drives me is really, I'm interested in the industry. I mean, I really enjoy what I do, and I've been growing my firm for the last 7 years. I get to travel and speak at these events. I do get to play games. In fact, I sometimes get to, quite often I'll play games before they're actually released because I'll be asked to beta test games, sometimes just for my friends in the industry, or I literally will have to, as part of my job, review a game to see what's in it, how it works.
I had to spend about 40 hours in this one game to fully evaluate it for this stuff we were doing for them. I didn't like the game. And I'm spending
We've
all this time.
all been there.
Oh my God, and I'm like, this is so much like work.
Yep.
But yeah, it's great to be able to take a passion for video games and be able to get to enjoy them some and to work in the industry. And
you know what? It's also a ball. I've got a young son. We're able to connect over these things, and I mean, it's something I would not have had if I had stayed in kind of the traditional IP role I had at my early on as a lawyer.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Basically, they can call me or email me. My information is Kane & Associates, LLC, and the website is basically www.kaneassociatesllc.com. So that, or they can always call me, which is.
I'll put up a link in the description.
That's fantastic.
To that.
I'm always happy to talk to people and see if we can assist them.
So I appreciate it very much.
Marcus, thank you very
for taking
much.
the
I
time.
appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
Everyone that defines our lives and